We're coming to you with breaking news that is sending shockwaves across the globe. In an absolutely historic and unprecedented development, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, are now in the custody of the United States. This isn't speculation. This has been confirmed by multiple credible news outlets, including CBS News, the Associated Press, and Reuters. According to verified reports, the President of the United States has officially announced the transfer of Maduro to American soil. Here, federal authorities are preparing to present formal charges against him, which are reported to involve international narcotics activity and organized crime. This is a monumental event, marking a major turning point in the long and complex relationship between the United States and Venezuela. As you can imagine, it has captured immediate global attention, with governments and international organizations already issuing statements about the immense significance of this development. So, let's break down exactly what we know has happened, based on verified facts from trusted news sources. First, the U.S. government made a public announcement confirming that President Maduro and his wife are in custody and under U.S. federal supervision. Following this, both were transported from Venezuela to the United States under official supervision, specifically for legal proceedings. And now, U.S. federal authorities have prepared formal charges against Maduro, centering on allegations of international narcotics and organized crime conspiracies. Officials have been quick to emphasize that the entire operation was conducted with extreme precision and care, ensuring the safety of everyone involved. We have no reports of any injuries to U.S. personnel, and international agencies are closely monitoring the situation as it unfolds. Now, you might be asking, what is the official justification from the United States for such a dramatic action? The President of the United States addressed this directly in a public briefing. He stated that this action was necessary to address long-standing and serious concerns about alleged narcotics trafficking involving the Venezuelan leadership. It was also aimed at ensuring regional security and stability in Latin America, and upholding the rule of law and accountability for international offenses. The statement was very clear that this action was strictly aligned with legal frameworks and was targeted only at the leadership implicated in the allegations, not the Venezuelan people. Let's look at the timeline of how these events unfolded. On January 3, 2026, in the very early hours, verified reports confirmed that Maduro and his wife were placed under official supervision for their transfer. U.S. and international media reported that the arrangements were meticulously executed to ensure both safety and compliance with international standards. By morning, both Maduro and Cilia Flores had arrived in the United States and were taken into federal custody. Almost immediately, preparations began for the formal charges we mentioned earlier. As you'd expect, news of this transfer spread like wildfire, prompting official responses from governments all around the world. Verified sources are consistently emphasizing the historical significance and the profound legal implications of this action. To put this into historical context, the transfer of a sitting head of state to another country for legal proceedings is extraordinarily rare. It almost never happens. Analysts are already highlighting several key points. Maduro's leadership has been a source of long-standing political tension in the region for years. U.S.-Venezuela relations have been defined by sanctions, legal actions, and continuous international monitoring. So, this action truly represents a major and perhaps paradigm-shifting development in international law and diplomacy. Experts from institutions like Chatham House are calling this operation highly unusual in modern diplomatic history, suggesting it marks a new precedent for holding heads of state accountable under international law. Let's delve deeper into the official statements from the U.S. The President of the United States publicly stated, and I quote, "This action successfully ensures that legal proceedings will take place regarding allegations of international criminal activity. President Maduro and his wife are now in custody and will face justice according to U.S. law. All measures were carried out in compliance with legal and international standards." End quote. In addition to this, the president indicated that the United States will temporarily oversee transitional measures in Venezuela. The stated goal is to maintain stability while new political processes are organized within the country. Of course, the Venezuelan government has responded. Authorities there have publicly condemned the transfer, calling it a violation of their national sovereignty. They have also emphasized the continuity of their domestic governmental institutions, trying to project a sense of stability and control. Their official statements characterize the U.S. action not as a lawful resolution, but as a political measure. The core of their message is a denunciation of the U.S. action, while asserting that governance within Venezuela continues uninterrupted. So, what is the actual situation on the ground in Venezuela right now? Verified reports from major news outlets describe a state of relative calm. Essential services in major cities are reported to be continuing without major disruption. Local authorities are present and are managing administrative functions. And importantly, international observers are on the ground monitoring the situation to ensure civilian safety. For now, the situation appears stable, with authorities emphasizing the need for calm and the continuation of normal civic life. This event didn't happen in a vacuum. For some time now, Venezuela has been a major focus of geopolitical attention. The United States has maintained a web of sanctions and legal indictments against Maduro and his associates for years. Neighboring countries in Latin America have been closely monitoring the situation due to the potential for political and economic spillover effects. And all along, international observers have been emphasizing the importance of adhering to legal frameworks while also ensuring stability. This action is a massive diplomatic and legal step, with consequences that will ripple through regional governance and international law for a long time to come. Let's talk about the legal implications because they are huge. The U.S. federal charges against Maduro are serious and include allegations of international narcotics trafficking, participation in organized crime, and involvement in criminal conspiracies that cross international borders. Legal experts are already weighing in, emphasizing that this will be a landmark case. It has the potential to fundamentally affect how international law handles foreign leaders who are taken into custody. The precedents set here could shape international relations for decades. This brings us to the historical and political significance of what has just occurred. This is one of the very first instances in recent history where a sitting head of state has been placed under foreign custody to face legal proceedings. It powerfully highlights the expanding reach of international law and its capacity to hold even the most powerful leaders accountable. Experts are stressing the absolute necessity for careful, legally compliant procedures throughout this process to maintain global credibility. Analysts also note that this action reflects the United States' ability to coordinate incredibly complex, watch international processes while minimizing risks, a demonstration of significant logistical and diplomatic capability. So, to summarize everything we've covered so far in this special report, verified news reports from multiple credible sources confirm that President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, are in U.S. custody. The formal charges being prepared against Maduro include serious allegations of narcotics trafficking and organized crimes. Authorities have repeatedly emphasized that the operation was conducted with precision, in full compliance with the law, and with a focus on maintaining stability. Meanwhile, the government in Venezuela has condemned the transfer, asserting its national sovereignty. And across the world, international observers and experts are noting the immense historical significance and legal precedent this event sets. Finally, on-the-ground reports from Venezuela confirm that the situation is currently stable, with administrative functions continuing as normal. This is a developing story, and we will continue to bring you verified, neutral updates as they become available. The world is watching to see what happens next in this unprecedented chapter of international affairs. Following the confirmed transfer of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife into U.S. custody, the world reacted, and the responses were as varied as they were immediate. Governments across the globe began issuing official statements, creating a complex tapestry of international opinion. Some expressed grave concern for the principles of national sovereignty, while others saw it as a potential step toward justice and accountability. Let's start in Latin America, Venezuela's own neighborhood, where reactions were particularly sharp and divided. The president of Brazil condemned the move, calling it a significant affront to Venezuela's sovereignty and a dangerous precedent for international order. He stressed the absolute need to respect territorial integrity and the principle of non-intervention. In stark contrast, Argentina's president framed the development in a positive light, suggesting it represented a move toward freedom and democratic renewal for the Venezuelan people. Colombia, sharing a long and often tense border with Venezuela, took a more cautious approach. The Colombian president called for immediate escalation and urged all parties to focus on humanitarian concerns. He emphasized the need for dialogue and regional cooperation to manage the potential impact on citizens living near the border. Meanwhile, Chile and Uruguay both issued calls for a peaceful resolution, urging respect for legal processes and regional stability. They highlighted that any external action must be followed by constructive political dialogue to ensure a lasting peace. Moving across the Atlantic to Europe, the sentiment was one of unified concern. German officials expressed deep unease and urged a political solution that aligns with international law, reaffirming the importance of diplomatic resolution and the protection of human rights. Similarly, French leaders stated that these events fundamentally undermine core principles of international law. They asserted that sustainable political change cannot and should not be imposed from outside a sovereign nation. The United Kingdom's authorities also weighed in, underlining the critical importance of upholding international law and established legal norms, especially in situations involving foreign leaders and cross-border actions. The European Union as a whole echoed these sentiments, releasing a statement that emphasized restraint, respect for the United Nations Charter, and the protection of civilians. While acknowledging the ongoing concerns about governance in Venezuela, the EU stressed the need for a peaceful, negotiated political transition. The reactions from Asia and the Middle East were even more forceful in their condemnation. The Chinese government minced no words, stating that the actions by the United States were a clear and undeniable violation of international law and Venezuela's sovereignty. Beijing called for the immediate release of President Maduro and his wife. Russia's response was equally strong, with Moscow urging U.S. leaders to reconsider their position. Russian officials argued that the situation not only undermines the concept of national sovereignty, but also poses a significant risk to broader geopolitical stability. Iran joined the chorus of condemnation, describing the developments as a flagrant breach of national sovereignty and international rules. Tehran called for global scrutiny of the actions, demanding a focus on lawful conduct in international affairs. As these statements poured in from capitals around the world, the international community appeared to split into several distinct camps. The first, and perhaps largest, was the group calling for unwavering respect for international law. Many countries and institutions, from Brazil to China, emphasized the foundational principle that sovereign nations must be free to determine their own leadership and political futures. They argued that any external actions must strictly align with widely recognized legal frameworks. Most notably, the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. This perspective holds that without adherence to these established rules, the entire international system is at risk of descending into chaos, where powerful nations can act unilaterally against weaker ones. On the other side of the spectrum, a significant number of governments and political figures expressed support for legal accountability. They framed the transfer of Maduro not as a violation, but as a necessary response to documented allegations of serious international crimes. For them, this was a potential step toward delivering justice for the countless individuals and communities affected by the crisis in Venezuela. This viewpoint argues that the principle of sovereignty should not be a shield for leaders who are accused of committing grave offenses. Instead, they believe the international community has a responsibility to act, ensuring that those who allegedly violate human rights and international law are brought before a court to answer for their actions. They see this event as a possible turning point for justice in the region. And then there was a third, more pragmatic group, which included nations like Colombia and the European Union. Their focus was less on assigning blame and more on finding a path forward. These nations strongly advocated for peaceful political dialogue. They emphasized that regardless of one's position on the legality or morality of the transfer, the only sustainable solution for Venezuela lies in negotiation and diplomatic engagement. They argued that long-term stability in both Venezuela and the broader Latin American region can only be achieved through a peaceful, inclusive political process. This group called for all sides to come to the table, de-escalate tensions, and work collaboratively toward a future defined by peace and democracy, rather than conflict and division. Beyond the political rhetoric, this unprecedented event has thrown a spotlight on complex questions of international law and diplomacy. Experts and diplomats worldwide are now grappling with the profound legal and diplomatic implications. The core issue revolves around the principle of sovereignty. For centuries, international law has upheld the idea that sovereign nations have the right to manage their own internal affairs without external interference. The detention of a sitting head of state by another country directly challenges this long-held principle, forcing a re-examination of its limits and exceptions. This leads to another critical question about the use of force and legal authority. Under what specific conditions can one state lawfully detain the leader of another? Does this action fully align with international legal norms, or does it set a new and potentially dangerous precedent? Legal scholars are now debating the potential justifications and the established frameworks that govern such actions, including international treaties and customary law. The outcome of this debate will have far-reaching consequences for how states interact with one another. Furthermore, the situation has put immense pressure on diplomatic channels. Governments and international organizations have strongly urged the United States and Venezuelan authorities to engage in transparent dialogues. The goals are clear: to manage the immediate repercussions, prevent further escalation, and address the urgent humanitarian concerns that have arisen as a result of this crisis. The shockwaves of this event are being felt most acutely in Latin America, where neighboring countries are closely monitoring the situation, deeply concerned about regional stability. Their primary focus is on maintaining border security and ensuring the protection of civilians who might be caught in the crossfire of political turmoil. There are significant worries about the potential for mass displacement or a new humanitarian crisis, which could overwhelm the resources of neighboring states. In response, countries like Colombia, Brazil, and Mexico have underscored the absolute importance of nonviolence and diplomatic cooperation. They are working through regional organizations to coordinate their efforts, aiming to promote peace, stability, and a unified regional response to the unfolding situation. Amidst the high-level political and legal debates, international responders have consistently highlighted the human dimension of this crisis. The focus must not only be on the leaders involved, but also on the well-being of the civilian population in Venezuela. Humanitarian organizations are raising concerns about ensuring the continuity of essential public services, such as healthcare, food, and water, during this period of uncertainty. Protecting the personal safety and freedom of movement for all citizens is another paramount concern. Furthermore, there is a pressing need to support refugees and migrants, whose situations could become even more precarious. These humanitarian considerations are shaping the global response, fueling the calls for peaceful political solutions that prioritize the welfare of ordinary people above all else. So, what comes next? The international community is looking towards several potential future scenarios. First and foremost is the question of a political transition in Venezuela. Many countries have expressed hope that these developments could, paradoxically, pave the way for a peaceful and democratic transition of leadership. They are emphasizing the need for free and fair elections, legal accountability for past actions, and the restoration of democratic institutions to create a stable and prosperous future for the country. In this complex process, international organizations are expected to play a critical role. Bodies like the United Nations and the Organization of American States will likely be called upon to monitor compliance with international law, facilitate diplomatic discussions, and help mediate the path toward a peaceful resolution. Their impartiality and global legitimacy make them indispensable actors in navigating this crisis. Several nations have already stepped forward, offering to serve as mediators or neutral parties to promote dialogue, de-escalate tensions, and support a peaceful transition of governance. Their diplomatic engagement will be crucial in bridging the deep divides that currently exist. The confirmed transfer of President Nicolás Maduro into U.S. custody is a moment of unprecedented international significance, as nations across the globe continue to evaluate their positions. They are forced to balance a deep respect for sovereignty with a commitment to international law and a shared aspiration for justice and stability. While opinions differ sharply, a common thread runs through the global response: a desire to find a peaceful, lawful, and democratic future for Venezuela. There is a broad consensus that disputes between nations must be resolved through established legal channels and robust diplomatic engagement. As world governments continue to respond and global institutions weigh in, the aftermath of this event will undoubtedly shape diplomatic relations and regional dynamics for years to come. Thank you for watching. This video is based on verified statements, media reports, and official sources available at the time of recording. The situation is developing, and we encourage you to consult official news outlets for the most current updates. Please subscribe for more in-depth analysis of global events.